Imagine you've just spent $164,000 on the ultimate symbol of American power, a truck with a 43-year best-selling streak behind it. You park it in your driveway, you walk away. But then the rear wheel hub bolts, the ones engineered specifically for this country, simply snap. And suddenly, your house deposit priced investment starts rolling toward the street. Ford has a problem. They have recalled every single F-150 they've sold. Not once, but 13 times in 2 years. In 2025, the market gave its verdict. Sales plummeted by 67%. We aren't just here to talk about mechanical failures. We're here because the Aussie F-150 is an experiment gone wrong. See, Ford stopped doing their own R&D and started using you as the final test subject. And as you're about to see, the results are much worse than Ford is letting on. The F-150 sold in Australia is almost identical to the one in the US, except it costs way more here, and we'll get to the infuriating illogic of that later. But recently, during one of our test drives, our F-150 just died. The electronics went haywire, warning lights flashing everywhere, and the truck had to be towed away. To understand why our F-150 ended up on a flatbed, you have to understand conversion friction. Ford doesn't make a right-hand drive F-150 for Australia, so to sell them here, they have to perform a 500-part lobotomy. Imagine taking a marathon runner and moving their heart, lungs, and nervous system to other parts of their body, all while they're still trying to run. That is what a right-hand drive conversion is. The HVAC system, gutted. The steering, rerouted using parts from a smaller Ford Ranger Raptor Ute. The dashboard, a complete structural redesign. It is in this surgical friction where the F-150 is failing. These recalls might not sound too wild until you remember the F-150 has only officially been on sale in Australia for 2 years. In the US though, the F-150 is a household name. It's been on sale since 1975 and has racked up around 400 recalls over that time. Buyers tolerate it because the entry-level price is far lower. But in Australia, you are paying luxury car money for this big truck. The price resets the expectation. When a truck costs this much, normal recall noise turns into a buyer confidence problem. Before we go further, I need to explain what an ADR is. Think of the ADR like a pre-purchase inspection. It checks the basics in a controlled setting, make sure the lights meet local regulations, so on and so forth. But the real issues often only show up once the vehicle is on the road. And don't forget, the F-150 was never originally designed for Australia or built with ADR compliance in mind. Still, the F-150 isn't the only American pickup truck to make the jump. The Ram 1500 and Chevrolet Silverado go through the same type of conversion process. They're similar in size, tech, powertrain, and market positioning, and they're not without their recalls either. In fact, Ram has had 26 recalls since 2017, but once you break it down to the number of recalls per year, Ford has had more than double that of Ram. So, why is the big Ford the odd one out? Well, it's about the partner Ford chose to remanufacture its vehicles for Australians. Here's a name worth remembering: Walkinshaw Automotive Group. They are the Aussie gold standard. They've been doing this for more than a decade. They're the team behind the conversions for Chevy and Ram trucks and the newest member of the big American truck troupe, the Toyota Tundra. And if the name sounds familiar, that's because Walkinshaw used to be the tuning powerhouse behind high-performance Holdens back in the day. HSV, anyone? Man, I had some absolute blasts fanging around in those homegrown V8 beasts. Good times. Anyway, while they still handle performance upgrades for vehicles like the VW Amarok, Triton, and Isuzu D-Max, Walkinshaw's main business now is left to right-hand drive conversions. So, naturally, you'd think Ford would use Walkinshaw too, right? Well, they didn't. And it wasn't some old Ford versus Holden rivalry. It was a calculation, a very expensive one. Getting an F-150 here to Australia is a financial marathon. After rolling out of Ford's factory in the US, the truck is packed and shipped across the Pacific, then taxed as it enters Australia. Next comes the costly right-hand drive conversion. After that, it's hit with the luxury car tax, then ADR certification, before, finally, it lands at your local dealer, where you'll have to pay on-road costs before you drive it away. So, a $40,000 American tool ends up being a $160,000 Aussie status symbol. I was actually watching Hank Green the other day, and for a science guy, he had a fascinating take on this.
I think that the Lightning was dumb, and I think that the failure of the Lightning will lead us to a better place.
Yes, it was the F-150 Lightning, but there are similarities. He argued that Ford stopped building a truck and started building a complex software platform that just happens to have wheels. And there's parallels in his explanation of that vehicle to what's happening here, because the software and the hardware are built together. But here, we rip the platform apart and try to trick the computer into thinking it's still in a factory in Michigan. We've kind of created Frankentrucks. We have a high-tech nervous system being rewired by hand on a different assembly line. So when your house deposit investment spends months in a service bay because a mechanic is fighting a custom wiring loom, the identity of this vehicle dies. Now, circling back to that name worth remembering, Walkinshaw. Ford decided to partner with a Thai-based company called RMA Automotive instead, one of Ford's most important global partners outside of the USA. Ford is RMA's biggest customer in Thailand, but RMA also works with Toyota, converting Hiluxes and Land Cruisers for military use by the Thai government and Defence Force. So, for the F-150 project in Australia, RMA set up a massive 21,000 square metre facility in Mickleham, Victoria, not far from Melbourne. The team can process up to 20 vehicles a day, with each conversion taking around 25 hours. The catch? Unlike Walkinshaw, RMA doesn't have deep experience with Australia's complex compliance standards. This is their first gig in Australia. So, why didn't Ford just go with Walkinshaw in the first place? The big point? Ford made a bet. Walkinshaw's conversion process is considered top tier, but it's also more expensive. Ford wanted a cheaper and partially in-house option to keep the F-150's price at least somewhat competitive in the Aussie market. And to be fair, the F-150 is significantly cheaper to buy in Australia from an official Ford dealer with a warranty than the Toyota Tundra, the Chevy Silverado, and the Ram 1500. But even if Ford wanted to switch to Walkinshaw right now, it'd be nearly impossible. Walkinshaw's Melbourne facility is already running at full capacity. On top of that, Ford has already poured millions into setting up RMA's local operation, from tooling and training to logistics. Switching partners midstream would mean starting over from scratch, a costly and time-consuming move Ford clearly isn't keen on making. Every vehicle hits a breaking point. When sales dip and profits shrink, car makers pull the plug. Just look at the Mercedes-Benz X-Class, which vanished from Aussie roads after lackluster interest and sales. The good news here, the F-150 isn't there yet. Sales have slumped by 2/3 in 2025, but a new look facelifted version of the big American pickup truck is coming this year and will likely reinvigorate interest. Thankfully, the facelifted F-150 is mechanically identical to its predecessor, so hopefully, with all the updates made via the recalls already, it will make it a more solid product going forward. And I reckon sales will bounce back in 2026, but Ford will need to embark on a charm offensive to catch up to the Ram 1500 and Chevy Silverado. So is the 2025 sales slump related to the recalls and perceived quality in the F-150? Probably. On one hand, the recalls show Ford is taking responsibility and fixing the issues. On the other, if your six-figure Ute spends more time at the dealership than in your driveway, it's bound to spook potential buyers. And word of mouth is a powerful, powerful thing. I reckon Toyota had it right with the Tundra. It put 300 of those American-built full-size pickup trucks through their paces with customers for 12 months before greenlighting the vehicle for local sale. That would have ironed out all the kinks that forced Ford into one recall after another. And if you want proof that Aussie buyers have lost patience, just look at that 2025 scoreboard. In July 2025, things got so bad that Ford had to hit the nuclear button. A nationwide stop sale for the F-150. They literally couldn't sell the trucks they had on the lot because the quality concerns were that deep. But here's a twist. Since we started filming this in November, F-150 sales have picked up. December figures put it second overall. Only the Chevy Silverado was more popular with Aussie buyers. But ultimately, when you look at the full yearly sales totals, Ford finished dead last. It even got beaten by the Tundra, a vehicle that's only been on sale for around 12 months in Australia. The moral of the story? Test, test, and test again. In the end, it doesn't matter how much American power you have rumbling away underneath you if the market doesn't trust the bolts holding it together. If you already own an F-150 in Australia, document everything. Keep service records, recall notices, and dealer communications. But most of all, drop your experience below. Entertain us in the comments section. And if you've enjoyed this video, I definitely recommend you check out my vid on the Mercedes-Benz X-Class. You won't be disappointed. See you next time.